Marcus Hill meant to send 3 familiar words to his 6-year-old daughter. "I miss you," a harmless message, a ritual of a single father living for his child. But in that tired moment, he selected the wrong name. The message never reached Maya. It landed on the phone of Evelyn Brooks, the coldest CEO at Brookstone Group. Those 3 words instantly ignited rumors. Marcus's reputation collapsed. Evelyn's career hung in the balance. And no one expected that she would reply, "I miss you too." Marcus Hill arrived at Brookstone Group headquarters at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before his shift began. He had done this every weekday for 3 years. Not once had he been late. Not once had he been early by more than 15 minutes. The operations floor was still dark when he reached his desk. He preferred it that way. The silence gave him time to organize his workflow before the building filled with voices and urgency. His workspace was sparse. No photographs, no decorations. A single coffee mug that he washed every evening before leaving. His colleagues knew almost nothing about him beyond his punctuality and the quiet competence with which he handled logistical coordination for the company's manufacturing division. They did not know about Naomi. They did not know that 3 years ago, on a Tuesday afternoon, a delivery truck had run a red light on Lake Street, that the impact had been instantaneous, that she had been on her way to pick up their daughter from daycare. They did not know that Marcus had received the call while sitting at this very desk, reviewing a shipment manifest for a client in Milwaukee. They did not know that he had become 2 people that day. The man who existed before 2:17 p.m., and the man who existed after. The Marcus Hill who worked at Brookstone Group was the after. Functional, reliable, present but not engaged. He completed his tasks with mechanical precision, attended meetings only when required, and declined every invitation to after-work gatherings. His colleagues interpreted this as aloofness. Some called him standoffish behind his back. Others simply stopped trying to include him. Marcus did not mind. His real life began at 5 p.m. when he left the building and drove to Mrs. Patterson's house on the south side to collect Maya. At 7:13 a.m., his phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patterson. "Maya. Asking for you already. Showed her the clock like you said. She understands Daddy has work." Marcus typed back, "Thank you. We'll be there by 5:30. Then he opened a new message, typed Maya's name from his frequent contacts, and wrote what he wrote every morning. "I miss you, little bean. Daddy will see you soon." He did not wait for a response. Maya could not read yet, but Mrs. Patterson would read it to her, and his daughter would smile. That was enough. Marcus set his phone down and opened his laptop. The Meridian project timeline needed review before the 9 a.m. status meeting. Brookstone had staked significant resources on landing Meridian Industries as a manufacturing client, and the operations team was responsible for ensuring the production schedule could meet their aggressive delivery requirements. The building gradually filled with people. Voices echoed through the hallways. The coffee machine in the break room began its constant gurgling. Marcus kept his head down, his focus on spreadsheets and logistics algorithms. He did not notice the glances. He did not hear the whispers. He had no idea that everything had already changed. The day of the mistake began like any other. Marcus woke at 5:15 a.m., prepared Maya's breakfast and lunch, dropped her at Mrs. Patterson's by 6:20, and arrived at his desk with time to spare. The morning progressed in its usual rhythm: email responses, shipment confirmations, coordination calls with the warehouse in Gary, Indiana. At 11:30 a.m., the Meridian status meeting began. It was tense. The client had pushed up their delivery deadline by 2 weeks, and the operations team was scrambling to compress the production schedule without sacrificing quality control checkpoints. Marcus spent 90 minutes in a conference room, running calculations on his laptop while senior managers debated whether the timeline was feasible. By 1 p.m., when the meeting finally ended, Marcus had a headache forming behind his left eye. He skipped lunch and returned to his desk to revise the entire production schedule based on the new parameters. He worked straight through the afternoon, barely noticing the passage of time until his phone alarm chimed at 4:45 p.m., his signal to begin wrapping up for the day. Marcus saved his work, shut down his laptop, and reached for his phone. His fingers were clumsy with fatigue. The headache had spread to both temples. He opened his messaging app and began typing the familiar 3 words, his mind already halfway out the door, already imagining Maya's face when he arrived at Mrs. Patterson's. "I miss you, little bean." He pressed send without double-checking the recipient. The message delivered instantly. Marcus slipped his phone into his jacket pocket, grabbed his bag, and headed for the elevator. He did not realize that instead of selecting Maya P., Mrs. P's phone, from his contacts, he had selected E. Brooks, from his recent message, list a name that appeared there only because he had been added to a company-wide announcement thread that morning. He did not realize that his private ritual had just been broadcast to Evelyn Brooks, CEO of Brookstone Group. He did not realize that his life was about to fracture in ways he could not predict or control. Marcus drove to the south side, collected his daughter, and spent the evening doing what he did every evening: preparing dinner, supervising bath time, reading 3 picture books before bed, and sitting alone in the dark living room afterward, thinking about Naomi. It was not until the next morning, when he arrived at work and noticed the stairs, that he began to understand something had gone very wrong. Evelyn Brooks had been CEO of Brookstone Group for 18 months. She was 35 years old, which made her the youngest person to ever hold the position. She had not earned it through years of climbing the corporate ladder. She had inherited it when her father, Richard Brooks, died of a heart attack in his office on the 42nd floor. The company had expected her to be a temporary figurehead, someone to hold the title while the board found a more suitable candidate. Instead, Evelyn had restructured the entire executive team within 3 months, renegotiated contracts with their top 5 clients, and increased profit margins by 18% in her first year. The board stopped looking for a replacement. Her employees called her brilliant. They also called her cold. Evelyn did not disagree with either assessment. She had learned early that emotion was a liability in business, and she had built her professional persona on that principle. She spoke in measured tones, maintained physical distance in all interactions, and never allowed personal matters to enter the office. What her employees did not know, what no one knew, was that Evelyn had been building that persona long before her father died. She had been building it since the day she was 16, and had tried to tell her father she wanted to study architecture instead of business. He had looked at her across his mahogany desk and said, "You will take over this company." That is not a conversation. She had been building it since every family dinner became a lecture on market strategy, since every birthday was marked with a book on leadership theory instead of a card, since her father had missed her college graduation because a client meeting ran long. She had been building it since the night she finally confronted him, 3 weeks before he died, and said she was not sure she wanted the company at all. He had looked at her with something close to disgust and said, "Then you are not the daughter I raised." They had not spoken again before his heart attack. Evelyn kept those memories locked away. She had become very good at locking things away. Her office on the 42nd floor was immaculate. No photographs, no personal items, nothing that might suggest she had a life beyond spreadsheets and board meetings. She worked 12-hour days. She answered emails at midnight. She skipped meals and ran on coffee and strategic precision. People respected her. No one liked her. Evelyn told herself this was acceptable. She had not taken this position to make friends. On the evening Marcus sent his accidental message, Evelyn was alone in her office, reviewing acquisition proposals. Her assistant had left hours ago. The floor was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system and the occasional distant sound of the cleaning crew. Her phone buzzed at 6:47 p.m. She glanced at the screen, expecting another automated alert. Instead, she saw a message from a name she vaguely recognized. Marcus Hill. Operations Team. She had seen his name on reports but could not recall ever speaking to him directly. The message read, "I miss you, little bean." Evelyn stared at it for a long moment. Her first instinct was to assume it was a mistake. Obviously, no one in operations would send such a message to the CEO intentionally. Her second instinct was to delete it and move on. She did neither. Instead, she sat very still, looking at those 4 words on her screen. Words no one had ever said to her. Words her father had certainly never said, even when she was a child, even when she had desperately wanted to hear them. "I miss you." Something cracked inside her chest. Just a hairline fracture, barely noticeable. But it was there. Evelyn set her phone down and returned to the acquisition proposals. She told herself the message meant nothing. A simple error, not worth her attention. But she did not delete it. And late that night, alone in her apartment overlooking the lake, she read it again. The next morning, Marcus arrived at his desk to find 3 colleagues clustered near the break room, their conversation dropping to whispers when he passed. At 9:15 a.m., his manager, Robert Chen, stopped by. "Marcus, can I see you in my office?" Marcus followed him down the hall, already running through possible explanations. Robert closed the door and sat on the edge of his desk. "Look, I'm just going to ask this directly. Are you involved with Evelyn Brooks?" Marcus stared at him. "What?" "Someone saw a text message on her phone yesterday. From you. It said, 'I miss you, little bean. People are talking.'" The words took a moment to penetrate. When they did, Marcus felt his stomach drop. He remembered typing those words. He remembered being tired, distracted. "That was meant for my daughter," Marcus said quietly. "I sent it to the wrong person." Robert's relief was visible. "Okay. That makes sense. You should probably explain." "I don't need to explain anything." Marcus kept his voice level. "It was a mistake. It's not anyone's business. Marcus, people are already assuming. Let them assume." He walked out before Robert could respond. Marcus returned to his desk and focused on his work with fierce concentration. He would not dignify the rumors with a response. The truth was obvious to anyone with basic reasoning skills. But by lunchtime, the whispers had become open stares. By 3 p.m., someone had apparently told HR, because Marcus received a meeting invitation for the following morning. By 5 p.m., when he packed his bag, the usual clusters of colleagues near the elevators went silent when he approached. Marcus drove to Mrs. Patterson's house with his hands tight on the steering wheel. Maya bounded out the front door, her backpack bouncing, her smile wide. "Daddy!" "Mrs. Patterson, let me help make cookies." Marcus knelt and pulled her into a hug, breathing in the scent of her hair. "Did you save me one?" "3. "Because you're 3 times bigger than me." He carried her to the car, buckled her in, and drove home. He made dinner. He supervised bath time. He read picture books until Maya fell asleep, and then he sat alone in the dark living room and tried to calculate how much damage a simple mistake could do to the fragile stability he had built for his daughter. Evelyn heard the rumors by mid-morning. Her assistant, Jennifer, brought them with obvious discomfort. "There's talk about a text message. I know what they're speculating." Evelyn's voice was flat. It was a mistake, clearly meant for someone else. "Should we issue a clarification?" "No. It will resolve itself." But it did not. By afternoon, Evelyn received pointed questions during a budget meeting. By evening, a board member called to express concern about optics. Evelyn ended the call and stood at her office window, looking down at the city 42 floors below. She could have stopped this immediately. A single company-wide email, 5 sentences, problem solved. But something held her back. Perhaps stubbornness. Perhaps the memory of those words on her screen. Perhaps the knowledge that Marcus Hill had done nothing wrong. The decision held for 2 days, until she left the building at 5:20 p.m. and witnessed something that changed everything. She was crossing the parking garage when she heard a child's voice. "Daddy, Daddy, you came." Evelyn turned and saw Marcus Hill kneeling before a small girl with braided hair and a bright yellow backpack. The girl threw her arms around his neck with such force he nearly lost balance. Evelyn stopped walking. She should have kept going. But something rooted her in place. "How was your day, little bean?" Marcus's voice was completely different from what she had imagined. Soft, warm, whole. "We learned about butterflies. They start as worms, but then they sleep in a cocoon and wake up with wings. That's amazing." Marcus smoothed his hand over her braids. "Just like magic. Do you think Mommy has wings now?" The parking garage went very quiet. Marcus was still for a long moment. Then he cupped his daughter's face gently. "I think if anyone deserves wings, it's your mom." The girl nodded solemnly. "Mrs. Patterson says Mommy is watching us." "Do you think that's true?" "I think Mommy would be very proud of you. Do you really miss me every day?" "Mrs. Patterson reads me your messages." Marcus pulled her close again. "Every second, little bean, every single second." Evelyn realized she had pressed her hand to her mouth. Tears were streaming down her face, silent and unstoppable. She turned and walked quickly to her car before they could see her. Her hands shook as she started the engine. In her apartment, Evelyn sat in the dark and cried for the first time since her father's funeral. She cried for the man who sent love letters to his daughter every morning. She cried for the child who asked about wings. She cried for herself, for the version of her that had never heard "I miss you" from the person who mattered most. And she understood with absolute clarity that she had to fix this. Evelyn called an all-hands meeting for 9 a.m. Monday morning. This was unusual. Jennifer spent the morning fielding confused inquiries. At 9 a.m. exactly, 400 employees gathered in the atrium. Evelyn stood on the second-floor balcony, her presence commanding immediate silence. "I'll be brief," she said, her voice carrying clearly. "It has come to my attention that a personal message was sent to me by mistake last week. The speculation ends today." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the crowd. The message was meant for a family member. A simple error. Anyone suggesting otherwise is inventing fiction. Anyone caught spreading rumors will face disciplinary action. Someone in the back shifted uncomfortably. "Brookstone Group employs adults. I expect you to behave accordingly. Focus on your work. Focus on our clients. Do not waste company time manufacturing drama where none exists." She let the silence stretch. "That's all." Evelyn turned and walked back to her office without waiting for questions. The effect was immediate. By noon, the whispers had stopped. By day's end, people were treating Marcus normally, as if overcompensating. But the damage was not entirely erased. Marcus noticed some colleagues still avoided eye contact. He noticed the awkward pauses when he entered break rooms. He noticed his name had been quietly removed from the Meridian project team. Robert Chen delivered that news, looking apologetic. "It's not about competence, it's about optics. With the client relationship being so important, I understand." Marcus kept his expression neutral. He did understand. He had become a liability. And in corporate environments, liabilities were managed by minimizing exposure. What he did not know was that the situation was about to get much worse. The first sign of trouble came Wednesday morning, 2 weeks after Evelyn's meeting. Jennifer entered Evelyn's office, looking pale. "Northway Holdings just canceled tomorrow's meeting. Their VP said they're reevaluating the partnership." Evelyn looked up sharply. "Did they give a reason?" "No. But it's not hard to guess. Northway Holdings was Brookstone's largest potential client. If it fell through, the company would miss annual growth targets by a significant margin, and the board would have questions. By Friday, those questions arrived in an emergency session. 8 board members sat around the conference table, expressions ranging from concerned to hostile. Gerald Morrison, the longest-serving member, spoke first. Evelyn, we need to discuss the Northway situation. I'm aware of their concerns. This isn't just about Northway. Morrison's tone was sharp. There have been questions about your judgment, about whether you're equipped to handle the scrutiny that comes with this position. Evelyn kept her voice level. My performance speaks for itself. Revenue is up 18%. Revenue doesn't matter if we lose client confidence, another board member interrupted. Were resolved weeks ago, were they? Morrison leaned forward. Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you let a personal matter spiral into a scandal that may have cost us our most important deal. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. By the end, Evelyn understood how precarious her position had become. The board wanted results. They wanted stability, and if she could not deliver both, they would find someone who could. Evelyn returned to her office and closed the door. For the first time in 18 months, she felt the weight of the building pressing down on her. She thought about Marcus Hill, who had been erased from his project through no fault of his own. She thought about how her attempt to protect him had somehow made everything worse, and she realized, with cold clarity, that she needed help. Marcus learned about the Northway collapse through office gossip. He also learned that some blamed Evelyn's handling of the text incident for damaging the company's reputation. It was not fair, not logical, but Marcus understood how corporate narratives worked. Someone always needed to be the villain. This time, it was Evelyn. On Monday morning, Marcus requested a meeting with someone outside his reporting line. Jennifer looked surprised. Mr. Hill wants to speak with Miss Brooks? Does he have a specific agenda? Tell her I might have a solution for the Northway problem. Jennifer's skepticism was obvious, but she scheduled 15 minutes at 2 p.m. Marcus spent his lunch break making phone calls. He had been at Brookstone 3 years, but before that, he had worked in manufacturing logistics for a decade. He still had contacts, he still had relationships. By 1:45 p.m., he had what he needed. He arrived at Evelyn's office exactly on time. She stood at her window, her back to the door, her posture rigid. Mr. Hill. She turned, and Marcus noticed the exhaustion in her face. Jennifer said, "You have an idea about Northway." Not Northway, an alternative. He set a folder on her desk. Redwood Solutions, manufacturing firm in Michigan. They've been trying to break into the Midwest market for 2 years. They have the capacity, aggressive pricing, and they're hungry enough to negotiate favorable terms. Evelyn opened the folder, scanning the documents. How do you know them? I worked with their VP of Operations 6 years ago. We stayed in touch, and they're interested. I called them this morning, very interested. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Why are you doing this? Marcus kept his expression neutral. Because I work here. Because the company's success affects my job security. And because you defended me when you didn't have to. That last part slipped out before he could stop it. Evelyn's face shifted almost imperceptibly. The meeting was necessary. The rumors ended my involvement in Meridian. Marcus's voice was quiet. You tried to help, and it cost you Northway. Now you're trying to save the company alone. That seems inefficient. For the first time, Evelyn smiled. It was small, barely there, but genuine. Sit down, Mr. Hill. Let's talk about Redwood Solutions. They talked for 2 hours. By 4 p.m., they had an outline. By 6 p.m., they had a full proposal. Marcus called Mrs. Patterson at 6:15 to say he would be late. The guilt was immediate and sharp. Marcus had not missed a single evening pickup in 3 years, but this was necessary. This was about protecting the job that allowed him to provide for Maya. By 9 p.m., they had a presentation ready for the board. Evelyn looked at Marcus across the conference table. Will they approve it? I don't know. But it's our best option. Marcus gathered his papers. I should go. My daughter has been waiting for you all evening. Marcus paused. Evelyn's voice was soft. I saw you with her. In the parking garage, a few weeks ago. Marcus said nothing. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. He left before the conversation could go deeper. But as he drove through the dark city, Marcus realized something had shifted. He had let someone in, just slightly. Just enough to work together, just enough to matter. It terrified him. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. Evelyn barely slept Wednesday night. She rehearsed the presentation until the words blurred together. Marcus met her in the conference room at 9:30. He was wearing a suit instead of his usual casual attire. The transformation was striking. Nervous? Evelyn asked. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. The board members arrived precisely at 10. Morrison took his seat at the head of the table, his expression skeptical. Evelyn began. She outlined Redwood Solutions' capabilities, pricing structure, track record. She explained how this partnership would not only replace Northway but potentially exceed it in profitability. Marcus provided the operational details. He walked through production timelines, quality control measures, logistics coordination. His delivery was calm, methodical, confident. The board asked questions, Marcus answered them. Morrison looked at the financial projections. This assumes Redwood can scale up within 3 months. That's aggressive. Their VP confirmed the timeline, Marcus said. I've worked with their team before. They deliver, and if they don't, then I've wasted your time. But I don't believe that will happen. Morrison studied him for a long moment. Then he looked at Evelyn. You're staking your credibility on this, and on him. The room was silent. Finally, Morrison nodded. Present this to Redwood by Monday. If they commit in writing, we'll approve. The meeting ended. Evelyn and Marcus walked back to her office in silence. When the door closed, she let out a breath. Thank you, she said quietly. We're not finished yet. No, but we're close. Marcus called Redwood that afternoon. Their VP was enthusiastic. Send over the proposal. We'll have our team review it this weekend. By Monday morning, Redwood had signed. By Tuesday, the board had approved. By Wednesday, the announcement went public. Brookstone Group had secured a major new manufacturing partner. Evelyn's position stabilized. Marcus was quietly reinstated to the Meridian project team. The rumors faded to background noise, then disappeared entirely. Life returned to normal. Almost. 3 months passed. Marcus settled back into his routine. Work, Maya, home, repeat. The Meridian project launched successfully. Redwood Solutions exceeded expectations. Brookstone's quarterly earnings impressed the board. Evelyn remained as she had always been. Efficient, distant, professional. But something had changed between them. Subtle, but undeniable. Marcus noticed it in small moments. The way Evelyn acknowledged him in meetings. The way she sometimes asked his opinion on decisions outside his department. The way she had started arriving at work earlier, often passing him in the parking garage around 6:50 a.m. They did not speak about anything personal. They did not need to, but there was recognition now. A quiet understanding between two people who had survived something difficult together. On a Tuesday evening in March, Marcus sat on the floor of his living room with Maya, helping her build a tower out of wooden blocks. Higher, Maya demanded. All the way to the ceiling. Physics says that's unlikely, little bean. What's physics? The reason towers fall down. Maya giggled and carefully placed another block. The tower wobbled but held. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expecting a message from Mrs. Patterson about tomorrow's schedule. Instead, he saw a message from Evelyn Brooks. His first instinct was concern. Work, emergency, client issue. Something requiring immediate attention. He opened the message. It read, I miss you. Marcus stared at the screen. Below that, another message appeared. This time, it's not a mistake. He sat very still, the sounds of Maya's play fading into background noise. 3 months ago, he would have dismissed this as impossible. 3 months ago, he would have assumed it was another accident. Another instance of crossed wires, but he knew better now. He knew what those words cost someone like Evelyn Brooks. He knew what it meant for her to send them. Marcus looked at his daughter, building her impossible tower, believing in things that physics said should not work. He thought about Naomi, about the promise he had made at her funeral to be present for Maya, always, about the walls he had built to protect them both from more loss. He thought about the fact that those walls were already crumbling, had been crumbling since the night Evelyn had worked beside him until 9 p.m., had been crumbling since he had seen her exhaustion and recognized it as a mirror of his own. Marcus typed slowly, "I miss you too." He did not elaborate, did not explain, did not promise anything beyond those 4 words. But they were true. The tower of blocks collapsed, and Maya laughed. "Again." "Let's build it again." Marcus set his phone aside and helped his daughter start over. Later, after Maya was asleep, Marcus stood in his dark living room and thought about the future. Not the distant future, not the grand plan, but the immediate future. Tomorrow. Next week. The slow, careful building of something new. He thought about the fact that healing did not mean forgetting. That moving forward did not require leaving Naomi behind. He thought about Evelyn, alone in her apartment 42 floors above the city, learning how to say, "I miss you," for the first time in her life. And he thought about the possibility that 2 broken people might, with enough care and time, build something that would not collapse. The next morning, Marcus arrived at work at 6:47 a.m. Evelyn's car was already in the parking garage. He found her standing at her office window, coffee in hand, looking out at the city waking up. "Good morning," Marcus said from the doorway. She turned, and for the first time since he had known her, Evelyn Brooks smiled without reservation. "Good morning." They stood there for a moment, neither speaking, both understanding that this was the beginning of something they could not name yet, something that would take time, something that would require courage, something that might, if they were careful, if they were patient, if they were willing to be vulnerable in ways that terrified them both, become real. "Thank you," Evelyn said quietly. "For the message." Marcus nodded. "Thank you for sending yours. I meant it." "I know. So did I." Evelyn set her coffee down. "I don't know how to do this, any of this. Neither do I. That's honest. It's all I have." She smiled again, smaller this time but no less genuine. "It's enough." Marcus left her office and returned to his desk. He opened his laptop and began his workday. Everything was the same as it had been yesterday. Everything was different. At lunch, he sent a message to Maya. "I miss you, little bean." At 2 p.m., his phone buzzed with a message from Evelyn. "Are you free for dinner on Saturday?" Nothing formal, just dinner. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed, "Yes." 1 word. 1 syllable. 1 step forward. That evening, when he picked up Maya from Mrs. Patterson's, his daughter looked at him with her impossibly perceptive 6-year-old eyes and said, "Daddy, you look different." "Different how?" "Less sad." Marcus knelt and pulled her into a hug. "Do I?" "Yeah." "Did something good happen?" "Maybe." "I'm not sure yet. I hope it did. You deserve good things." He held her tighter. "So do you, little bean?" They drove home through the familiar streets, past the corner store where Naomi used to stop for milk, past the park where they had taken Maya when she was learning to walk. Marcus no longer flinched at these landmarks. They were simply part of the landscape now. At home, Marcus made dinner, while Maya colored pictures of butterflies at the kitchen table. She hummed tunelessly, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Daddy, can butterflies be purple? Butterflies can be any color you want them to be." She grinned and reached for another crayon. After dinner, Marcus supervised bath time. Maya insisted on using all the bubble bath, turning the tub into a mountain of foam. She made sculptures, declaring them to be castles and dragons. "Daddy, do you think Mommy would like my bubble castle?" Marcus paused. These questions came less frequently now, but they still caught him off guard. I think Mommy would love it. She always loved your imagination. Do you still love her? Every day. Maya nodded, satisfied. Good. Mrs. Patterson says you can love more than one person at the same time. Like how I love you and Mrs. Patterson and my teacher, Miss Reeves. Marcus resumed, rinsing her hair, grateful for the distraction. That's true. So if you loved someone new, you wouldn't stop loving Mommy? His hands stilled. No, little bean. I would never stop loving Mommy. Okay. Maya stood up, dripping and covered in bubbles. Can I have 3 stories tonight? The moment passed. Marcus wrapped her in a towel and carried her to her bedroom. He read 4 stories, a picture book about a girl who befriended a dragon, another about a boy who built a rocket, a third about a family of bears, and finally, Maya's favorite, a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Transformation, Maya said sleepily. That's the big word Miss Reeves taught us. It means changing into something new. That's right. Do people transform too? Marcus thought about the question. About the version of himself before Naomi's death and after. About Evelyn, who had learned to say, I miss you, after 35 years. Yes, he said quietly. People transform too. It just takes longer. Maya was asleep before he finished the sentence. Marcus carried her to bed, tucked the blankets around her, and stood in the doorway watching her breathe. This was the moment each night when the grief hit hardest, when the house was quiet and he had no distractions. Except tonight, the loneliness felt different. Lighter, as if a door had opened somewhere, letting in air. Marcus walked to the living room and sat in the dark. This had been his ritual for 3 years. Sitting here, thinking about Naomi, remembering her laugh, the way she danced while cooking, the fierce intelligence in her eyes. He still missed her. That would never change. But tonight, he also thought about Evelyn, about the exhaustion in her face during their late-night work session, about the way she had smiled that morning, about the courage it took to send that message. His phone sat on the coffee table. Marcus picked it up and read Evelyn's words again. I miss you. This time, it's not a mistake. He thought about Saturday dinner, about sitting across from her, having a conversation that had nothing to do with work, about learning who she was beyond the cold efficiency. The prospect terrified him. It also pulled at something in his chest that had been dormant for so long. Hope. Marcus set his phone down and closed his eyes. He let himself sit with the fear and the hope. Let them coexist. He thought about what Maya had said. Transformation takes time. He thought about Evelyn's words. I don't know how to do this. He thought about his own response. Neither do I. Maybe that was the point. Maybe 2 people who did not know how could learn together. Slowly, carefully, without erasing what came before. The next morning arrived quickly. Marcus went through his routine. Wake up, prepare Maya's breakfast, drive to Mrs. Patterson's, arrive at work. When he walked into the office building at 6:47 a.m. and saw Evelyn's car in the parking garage, something shifted in his chest. He took the elevator to the 42nd floor. Her office door was open. She stood at the window, coffee in hand, silhouetted against the dawn. Marcus knocked softly. She turned, and the smile that crossed her face was genuine. Warm. Uncertain, but real. Good morning, Marcus said. Good morning. They stood there in the doorway, neither moving closer, neither looking away. I got your message, Marcus said. About Saturday. I said yes. Evelyn's smile widened slightly. I know. I was confirming you meant it. I meant it. Good. She took a sip of coffee, and Marcus noticed her hand trembled. She was nervous. Evelyn Brooks, who commanded boardrooms and restructured companies, was nervous about a dinner invitation. The observation made him feel less alone in his own fear. I should warn you, Marcus said. I'm not good at this. I haven't been on a date since Maya was born. 8 years. I've never been good at this, Evelyn admitted. I don't think I've been on a date since college. They looked at each other, and suddenly Marcus was fighting the urge to laugh. Here they were, two adults standing in a corner office at dawn, confessing their mutual incompetence at something as basic as dinner. We'll figure it out, Marcus said. Will we? We figured out Redwood Solutions. Dinner should be easier. Evelyn smiled. I appreciate your optimism. It's not optimism. It's logistics. Dinner has fewer variables. This time, Evelyn did laugh. It was quiet, barely there, but it transformed her face. Marcus realized he wanted to hear that laugh again, wanted to be the reason for it. I should let you work, he said, and I should let you go before someone starts more rumors. Let them. We survived the first wave. Evelyn's expression softened. Thank you for that. For all of it. You already thanked me. I know, but I'm not sure I said it right the first time. Marcus understood. What had started as professional gratitude had become something more personal, more vulnerable. You said it right, Marcus told her. Both times, he left her office and returned to his desk. The morning unfolded in its usual pattern. Emails, calls, spreadsheets. But everything felt different. Lighter. At lunch, Marcus sent his daily message to Maya. I miss you, little bean. He stared at those words, thinking about how they had changed his life, how a simple mistake had unraveled everything and somehow brought him here. At 2:30 p.m., his phone buzzed. Evelyn. How does Italian sound? Marcus. Sounds perfect. What time? Evelyn. 7. Marcus. I'll be there. Saturday was 4 days away. 4 days to figure out what he was doing. 4 days to accept that, ready or not, he was already in motion, already transforming. That evening, Mrs. Patterson noticed immediately. You seem lighter today, she observed, handing Maya over. Do I? Something good happen at work? Marcus hesitated. Maybe. I'm not sure yet. Mrs. Patterson smiled knowingly. Well, I hope it works out. You deserve some happiness. Marcus. On the drive home, Maya chattered about her day. Marcus listened, but part of his mind was elsewhere, thinking about Saturday, about Evelyn, about whether any of this was fair to Maya. The guilt hit hard and sudden. Daddy, are you okay? Marcus looked in the rearview mirror. I'm okay, little bean. You look sad again. Just thinking. About Mommy? Yeah, about Mommy. Do you think she would be happy? If you were happy? Marcus almost missed the turn onto their street. He pulled into their driveway and turned off the engine. Then he turned to face Maya. Yes, he said quietly. I think Mommy would want me to be happy. Both of us to be happy. Then you should be happy, Daddy. It's okay. Marcus climbed into the back seat and pulled Maya into a hug. This impossibly wise 6-year-old who somehow understood things most adults spent lifetimes figuring out. When did you get so smart? He whispered. I've always been smart. You just noticed now. They sat there in the car, holding each other, the evening light fading around them, and Marcus realized Maya was giving him permission. Permission to move forward. Permission to transform. Saturday arrived with spring rain. Marcus spent the morning cleaning while Maya played. At 5:30 p.m., he called Evelyn. Is everything okay? We're still on for tonight? A pause. Were you hoping we weren't? No, I was worried you changed your mind. I haven't, have you? Good. 7 o'clock. Marcus looked at Maya, who watched him with knowing eyes. You have a date tonight. How did you know? You've been nervous all day. And you're wearing your nice shirt. Is that okay, that I have a date? Maya considered this. Is she nice? Does she make you smile? Sometimes. Then it's okay. But tell me about it tomorrow. He kissed her head. Mrs. Patterson would arrive soon. Marcus had a date with a woman who had learned to say, I miss you at 35. A woman who had defended him. A woman learning, like him, how to build something new. He was terrified. He was ready. And maybe those two things could be true at the same time.